Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my madness. The madness of Lydia decides to take something epic on without actually really thinking about it to the extent that she should have first. So I just for a little bit of backstory here, I had kind of gone down a rabbit hole with this Alice in Wonderland theme kind of painting that I had done. And this is the painting that I had finished, which I didn't film at all. In fact, this was kind of an experimental piece and I was having a lot of fun with it. But I love Alice in Wonderland. I love Through the Looking Glass and all of the elements of that kind of nonsensical vibe. But I had this idea that I wanted to do a Frida Kahlo Queen of Hearts painting. And so I kind of pushed that aside while I was working on other things. And then I kind of got to the point where it was really like, it was getting to me and I really wanted to do a sketch. So I decided to do a quick sketch, take a couple of hours and kind of figure out how I wanted to have things placed. And it was pretty basic. The sketch was pretty basic. It had some concept ideas in there, but really it was kind of getting the composition in place to where I wanted it to be. And so I did this sketch and then decided that I would stretch a 16 by 20 inch canvas and do a grisaille. And so paint a black and white underpainting to kind of establish my values, see where I wanted things to go exactly. And halfway through it, I wasn't really thrilled. So I said, okay, make another challenge for yourself and stretch a 24 by 30 inch canvas because that makes sense, right? And then put a less detailed sketch onto the canvas by transferring your enlarged sketch on there because of course you make something bigger, there's going to be less detail on it as well. So then I was like, I'm going to block in the reds. I'm going to block in the reds. I'm going to put the darks in and this will be fine. I'll be able to figure this out as I go. No problem. No problem. Okay. Well, of course there's going to be issues because I don't have a really detailed concept and I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants at this point. So I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna make like the top right corner into kind of that Three of Swords looking. Yeah, so I was like, okay, this is fine. I can figure this out as I go. No issues. But I ran into a lot of issues. So I decided that I wanted to put some stenciling in. I will use that to get some design up in that corner. And at first I thought, oh, that looks really kind of cool. It's kind of got that playing card vibe to it, right? But I ended up hating it. And moving on to another area where I've never painted a crown before, but that's fine because I painted metal. So I was like, well, this is going to be fine. I can paint this crown. And I can draw roses perfectly fine. I can do black and white roses. I actually am very good at drawing flowers, but painting them, I don't paint a lot of florals. And for some reason, unbeknownst to me, I decided roses would be a really good idea because they're red. I can do the red roses like the Queen of Hearts. It makes sense. But roses aren't something that I've done a lot of. I haven't painted a lot of red roses. That's not something that I have in my arsenal or whatever of painting. And especially with acrylics. I've always done more abstract or impressionist flowers, but I've never done like highly rendered roses. So I did the best that I could with them and they actually came out surprisingly well. I'm very pleased with how the roses came out, but it wasn't without difficulty. Flowers really have never been on the top of my list as far as putting them into my compositions. They've always kind of been like more of a, well, I'll do a little bit of abstract floral going on over there and that'll be good enough. But I've never taken the time to really paint flowers. So the roses went well, I thought, considering, and I was quite pleased with them. In fact, I didn't paint over them. That was one of the things in this painting that I didn't paint over. But then when it got to the actual portrait, I'm used to doing an acrylic underpainting and then finishing with oils because I tend to do better portraiture with oils than with acrylics just because I have more working time with oils. So I just thought that I would make a compromise. and do golden open acrylics. But the problem with golden open acrylics is they're more transparent than regular acrylics or heavy body acrylics. And so I ended up having to do more layering like I would if I were doing an oil painting. So I'm not really sure if that benefited me in the long run. Although there's a quicker drying time with the golden open acrylics, it's still a lot harder, especially when you don't have like specific colors that you have in oil paint, in order to mix your skin tones and make it look somewhat realistic. So there was a lot where the first layer of portraiture that I did was not how I wanted it to look at all, but I had to wait for that layer to dry before I could start layering more transparents on and getting more detail into the face and making her look more like Frida Kahlo, because in the beginning it was like, I can't do anything about that, I have to wait for that to dry. So, you know, I started moving on to other parts of the painting. And this was fine. This I could work with this. I'm not used to really working like this, but in sections, I'm used to having like color already established onto the canvas and kind of working with that, but it was all right. I was going to persevere and paint things that I've never really painted before and kind of get going with this. So for some reason, unbeknownst to me yet again, I said to myself, well, you know what? I think you should put a landscape in the background, because you're a landscape painter. I'm not a landscape painter at all. I don't paint landscapes. That's not what I do. So I ended up kind of doing this impressionist landscape. I like put everything into this painting. It was the most ridiculous thing, most ridiculous undertaking as far as things that I don't do. So it has a little bit of this impressionist landscape in it. I've done these highly rendered roses, and then I got to this stupid collar, which once again, if I had drawn it out, I would have been able to figure it out prior to actually trying to paint it. So there was a lot of revising and editing as I went through this painting, as opposed to actually like knowing what I was doing prior to painting it and having a plan. So I was like, it's okay, I can work with this. I went higher up on the neck. I decided I'll put some beadwork in here. I'll put some diamonds in and get a nice design going. And then I absolutely hated it. I'm not happy with this area at all. And so I'm gonna have to revamp it. Oh boy. So then I went through the process of blocking things out with titanium white. And the whole entire collar, I'm like, I'm just painting over this whole entire thing, and I'm going to figure it out as I go and work my way down the collar. What is wrong with me? I ask you why this ended up being a relatively intuitive painting. I had a very like strong idea in my head of how I wanted this to look, and then I thought, Lydia, you should make this armor. What? Make it into armor. Because you've painted all of those knights in shining armor, right? No, never painted a knight in shining armor in my life. And so, but I've painted metal. So I was like, okay, same concept, same idea. You're going to create an armored collar. And like this playing card, the Queen of Hearts, and having the shape of the whole, you know, collar going down, and then you can put hearts in it and really kind of work with this idea in your head that you don't have firmed up at all, and that'll be fine. Okay, so I ended up painting the collar. Now the collar, believe it or not, I was like, wow, this is actually turning into something. This is turning into something cool. I'm really happy with this. I'm really like, I'm doing the shading. I'm really getting into it now. And I'm like, all right, this is going somewhere. Once the collar had been established, I was pretty excited, because before that, I wasn't happy about it at all. So I go down to this left-hand corner and I said, all right, you know, I've got some of these really nice vibrant colors in here, but I think that I want to add a little grayscale into this painting. And so I decided, okay, well, you know, do kind of a stylized rose in this bottom corner, and you can just work with the shading and kind of make it into a rose. Now that I painted roses, I was like, I'm going to paint more roses, because that's that makes sense. Get my rose practice in. Like really kind of practice some floral. And now I'll do it in grayscale, which grayscale is easier for me because I was a charcoal artist for many years and I understand values really well with grayscale. So I was like, you know, I'm gonna do this down here. I'm gonna make kind of like the spade, which I had in my original drawing, and work with this area down here and make it a little bit more interesting. But then when I went up to the left-hand corner, I was so incredibly like unhappy with that stencil job. It just looked so campy now that I had painted this collar in and I had these really nice roses in and everything. I'm like, well, that just looks flat. So I ended up coming up with my own design and kind of drawing it in on top of the black that I ended up painting everything black again, and then creating this whole like intricate design in this corner. And it looked really gothic and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. It kind of goes with the rose at the base of it, which looks like this gothic rose. And then I got over to the other side of the canvas and I didn't like this whole, it was like a cobalt turquoise area down here. And so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make it into like the back of a playing card. You know that pattern that they sometimes have on the back of playing cards? And that ended up being really cool and I liked it. So I got up to the top right-hand corner and I didn't like the original design with the 3 of swords kind of going through the heart. So I said, I'm gonna make it into a ruby. What are you doing? So you've never painted a jewel? Like you're not painting jewels? And I'm like, it's okay. I can figure out how the facets go. It's kind of like this diamond pattern or whatever. And so I ended up painting a heart ruby in that corner and kind of making it look like an old like faded card in that top right hand corner, and just using some sepia ink and making it look all antiqued. And then I stood back and I looked at this painting, which has this tremendous combination of reality, impressionism, stylized elements, just such a cool painting. And this all happened because I had no idea what I was doing. The reality is that what I ended up creating, I think, was a pretty epic, cool painting. I'm very happy with it. There's a lot going on in it. There's a lot of different designs that were kind of created on the spot, and a lot of things that ended up being the painting telling me what it needed. And that sounds weird, but the fact of the matter is that all of the kind of designs that I came up with at the beginning, I kind of revamped them as I went because it didn't work, and then finding things that did work. So anyway, I hope you like the painting. I really do. Really challenging paintings tend to hold a place in my heart because of all of the work that I did in order to complete the painting. But I do hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the painting, and let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, I hope you do like it. I hope you think it was a cool idea, a cool concept, and I think Frida looks pretty good. Of course, I keep looking at it and I keep thinking, well, I think I still might want to do a little tweaking here and there. But generally, the concept is on the canvas and I'm quite pleased. So let me know what you think. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.